it's Miss Nichols. We are about to do some math. Before we get into our number talk, I want us to go over our learning target for today. Our learning target is behind me on the board. Please say it out loud with me. I can make sense of problems and persevere in solving them. So, what is a learning target and what does this learning target mean to us? So, a learning target is our focus for the day. This is what we're going to focus on in math, making sense of problems and persevering in solving them. Well, what does this learning target mean? What does this mean to you? I'm sure most of you can figure out the first part is making sense of problems. If you saw the problem here, 3 times 5, I'm sure you could all make sense of that and solve that problem for me. But what does it mean to persevere? What does that look like in math? Well, when a problem gets tough and more challenging and harder and not as easy to solve and make sense of, like 3 times 5, we have to persevere. We have to push through that challenge and we've got to figure it out and make sense of that problem. So as things get harder and we just want to give up and say, I don't get it, you got to tell yourself, I don't get it yet. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep trying. I'm going to look at this some different ways, persevere, and make sense of this problem to solve. So remember, don't give up, don't stop, never quit, and push through those challenging problems as they get harder and harder. Think to yourself, what strategies have I not tried? Is there a different way to look at this? Maybe I'm going about it all wrong. So rethink how you're doing things when those things do get harder and more challenging and push through that problem solving to make sense of it to solve that problem. So we're going to do a number talk now. For those of you that don't know what a number talk is, I'm sure most of you that are from Payne and familiar with this, you know what a number talk is. If you're new to Payne, this may be new to you. So are we just going to talk about a bunch of numbers? Kind of going to talk with numbers, but a number talk is to kind of get our brains and our minds warmed up and ease us into our math for the day. Sometimes, well, all the time with the number talk, we're going to think of different strategies to use with some of the problems that I put up here. Using these different strategies, challenging and persevering through those challenges to think of different strategies to use will help us in our math lesson. Most of the time, I've got these designed so that you can come up with some different strategies that will help you with your task or with what we're going to do today. So let's start off with the first one, 3 times 5. When I say that, and as you see it up here, I want you to think about, what is 3 times 5? And is there more than one way to know and solve for 3 times 5? So as you're kind of thinking about that, some of you may just know right off the bat, 3 times 5, I know that because I know my math facts. I know those multiplication facts. Well, some of you might have thought it in a different way. Some of you might have thought it about, well, I didn't go about it that way. I actually skip counted. I counted by 5s 3 times. Some of you might have thought, no, I didn't do that either. I did repeated addition. I did 5 plus 5 plus 5, and I did 5 3 times. Sorry, I'm trying to show my numbers so you can see on the whiteboard. I did my 5s 3 times and added them together. So thinking about it with different strategies kind of warms up our minds for all the strategies we could use with our task we're about to do. So don't pick up any pencil or paper. A number talk is meant to do all in your mind. Remember, we're warming up our brains. We're kind of getting our minds alert and getting started for our math day. So don't pick up pencil and paper. We're going to try to do this all mental on our heads. Our next problems are over here. So in just a moment, I'm going to have you pause and solve these. Remember, not on paper, but in your minds in just a moment. I would like for you to solve these in the order that they appear on the board. And I would like for you to try to solve them using 2 different strategies. So going back to our example problem, I gave you all the example of skip counting and repeated addition. So go on and look through these problems and solve them in your heads using at least 2 strategies. Go on and pause and solve now. Hopefully you actually paused and you did that number talk by yourself. And hopefully you did think up 2 strategies. If you thought of more, awesome, let me know. I can't wait to hear of the 5 or 6 or 7 strategies you came up with. So remember, challenge yourself, persevere through those challenges, and think of as many different strategies as you can. Because all those strategies that you think of will help you and will have your mind ready to go and alert for our task we're about to start. Let me grab our task. So on Schoology, you'll see a picture of a chart to fill out and be completed. What I am going to tell you now is the story that goes along with that chart. So listen closely. The story is called Millionaire Island. A new island has been discovered by pioneer Arnie Mitchell. He named his tropical paradise Millionaire Island and decided to build a community of new houses on the island. Arnie went through several phases to complete the building process, determine the shape of the community, and the total number of houses on the island at the end of each phase. So let's talk about some of the phases that he went through to kind of determine the shapes of the community and the number of houses. Phase 1. Arnie built a model home to attract potential home buyers. It was built on a corner of the island, and when you look down on the island from the airplane, the house looks like a small square. Show a sketch of what the outline of the house might look like on this island. So, where did my marker go? Let me grab that real quick, and I'm going to do a small sketch. Alrighty, it said that it looked like a small square. Phase 1. He built a model home to attract potential buyers. He built it on the corner of the island where when you look down, it looks like a small square. So, it talks about the corner of the island. So if my island has corners, I'm going to draw a shape that has corners. Alrighty, so I got my rectangle because it's got corners. That's an easy shape to draw. And from the airplane view, it said to draw the square. Alrighty, so there's our example. The one house that Arnie built in phase 1 in the corner of his island. Let's go on to phase 2. Phase 2. Once Arnie secured home buyers, he was able to build one street of houses. And we are on to this. Alrighty, so it then says he was able to build a street of houses and to show a sketch of what the street would look like for 10 houses. Alrighty, so 10 houses. I'll just draw that next door to my one house. Some of my houses were too big. All right, let's double check that we've got 10 houses. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. All righty, so we've got phase 1. He built one house to attract home buyers. Boom, there's our one house in phase 1. So I am going to kind of divide up my columns here and put P1 for phase 1 and P2 for phase 2. All righty, now that's where I'm going to pause and not do any more drawing, but this is where your chart is going to come in handy because you're going to need to follow along and kind of create the next few phases for us. So, next, phase 3. Arnie was on a roll selling new houses on the island. He made 10 times as many streets, creating a neighborhood which made the house community 10 times wider. So we've got one individual house, which is one square, and we've got one street That is 10 houses. So just remember, as you're creating and as you're expanding on with phase 3, that one street is 10 houses. So I'm going to read that one more time and listen closely. So Arnie was on a roll. He made 10 times as many streets. All righty, so what's that going to look like when he's made 10 times as many streets in a neighborhood and made the housing community 10 times wider? So what will that look like? That's phase 3. Phase 4, Arnie built for the rest of the year. He made 10 times as many neighborhoods, creating a small town that made the housing community 10 times longer than it was in phase 3. Oh my goodness, he's just booming with his building. It's going bigger and bigger and bigger. So what's going to happen in phase 5? Phase 5, Arnie continued to build over the next several years. He made 10 times as many towns, creating a city which made the housing community 10 times wider than it was at the last end of phase 4. Oh my goodness. Phase 6. Phase 6, Arnie took a short vacation, then went back to work to continue building. He made 10 times as many cities, creating a county that made the housing community 10 times longer. Oh my gosh, we're getting wider and we're getting longer and we're getting wider and we're getting longer. It's going and going and going. So what's going to happen in phase 7? Phase 7, Arnie decided to work nonstop to finish the housing community on his island. He made 10 times as many counties that made the housing community 10 times wider than what it was in phase 6. Oh my gosh, we predicted it. It's getting bigger and bigger. This completed the development on Millionaire Island. So what you are going to do, I will have this whole story for you on your Schoology with instructions for what to do next. But if you need help and you need to hear this story again, just play this video over so that you can hear and maybe get a little entertainment out of Miss Nichols reading it aloud. But at the end of this, I want you to think about some questions. First, you need to determine the total number of houses that was built at the end of each phase. First, figure out the total number of houses built at the end of each phase. Next, determine how the shape of the housing community changed with each phase. That was number 2, determine how the shape of the housing community changed with each phase. And number 3, come up with patterns to develop each phase. What patterns will you use? What strategies will you use to create each new phase? So that is your story and your task for today. All instructions will be on Schoology. I can't wait to see what you do. How you will turn it in and kind of explain to us how you solved it, what strategies and methods you used is Flipgrid. I hope you guys love using Flipgrid. It is so much fun to see all the fun videos that you guys come up with and seeing your faces and hearing your voices and explaining it yourself to me on Flipgrid. So all the instructions will be on Schoology for you. I hope you enjoyed today's lesson.